Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to bring you this special bulletin. I'm about to go over yet one more reason why so-called professional game journalists are losing their jobs. In a day and age where, especially lately, you have a few games coming out that one of them is a massive success, a bit of an underdog, especially for the price point. And then you have this. Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, a overplayed gimmick of a game where you have a bunch of bad guys who get together and are convinced to go after the good guys who have been turned evil because that's something new and innovative right now. Because, sorry, we haven't seen that before. But with this from PC Gamer, one of the epitomes of integrity when it comes to game journalists, 8 hours in, Suicide Squad doesn't seem like the disaster some were waiting for, at least when you were actually able to play. Everything I've heard is a whole different story. When you have a $100 price point to get early access to a video game, a single-player video game, that for some odd, bizarre reason is always online, and the servers crash, not once, but twice, you seem to be competing for worst initial release of a video game since Cyberpunk. And that is hefty competition. 24 hours, no, I'm sorry, 8 hours in. 8 hours in, so you're almost finished with the game. It's pretty fun. Now, are you curious? I've heard a lot of things. I've watched a couple of people play, and I've gone through a few of the cinematics because I have absolutely no intention. I had no desire to play this game, regardless of the price point, because it did not interest me. But after seeing all the footage, all the talking points, and the dialogue, if you want to call it that, and how the complete and total disrespect that they had for beloved characters, beloved heroes, who have spanned decades upon decades upon decades, and yet they want to sit there and wonder why fans are upset, especially the fans of Kevin Conroy's Batman. I'll get into that in a moment. But let's see what this good old Morgan Park finds so much fun about the game. Is it the story? Is it the characters? Well, let's scroll down here. Getting around Metropolis is half the fun. So far, I'm 8 hours in and having a great time leaping across Metropolis, tearing through purple aliens plus a billion helicopters, and learning how to get the most out of every member of Task Force X. With the cringy dialogue that just doesn't stop. Keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. Cannot let there be any amount of silence over their intercoms. But the big takeaways for the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Getting around Metropolis is fun. Now, don't get me wrong. What I've seen in the game, the mechanics don't look too bad. The visuals, the scenery, the setting, it's a pretty game. There's no denying that. But how many different mob types are there? 3 or 4? I don't know. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But one of your favorite things is getting around Metropolis is half the fun. Okay. Jumping around. Okay. I guess that can be fun. But you can do that in most other games. Why does that make this game fun? Let's go on. The guns are surprisingly good. Okay. So that goes down to mechanics that has nothing to do with the story or the characters. But it's the guns. All right. What else we got? The missions are simple and samey. I was watching Mauler from EFAP play, and it seemed like one fetch quest, go here, kill these guys, and come back. Go fetch this and come back. Or escort quest, babysit this Land Rover until it gets from point A to point B. Now, there's nothing wrong with that as far as generic side missions. Really, there's nothing wrong with that. You have that all over different open world games. And if they're done right, they can be quite enjoyable. But there needs to be some uniqueness, especially when it comes to the main story quests. Things that are a little more involved Yes, I understand it's a first-person shooter, a looter shooter to be specific, but after a while that can get boring, especially considering the other games in the looter shooter genre that you're competing with, whether it's Halo or Destiny 2. Those games have tended to run the market. Others who have come in to compete in the looter shooter market have failed quite miserably. We don't talk about Anthem. That was a whole nother story, I believe. Marvel's Avengers with Kamala Khan in front and center. Little bait and switch there. That game didn't last all that long. 1, maybe 2 years tops before they dumped it like a bad habit. So having missions being simple and samey. Samey's not a positive. Simple and samey in a video game will not take you very far. And I played World of Warcraft for 10 years. Oh, that's it. That's it? Oh my goodness. We'll keep at it with Suicide Squad as the game releases for everybody on Friday. From what I've heard, there are people looking for refunds with this game. So what you like about Suicide Squad, you can't even come up with anything about the characters, anything about the story, anything about the fights, the major boss fights. And maybe that's because that's one of the number one negatives I continuously hear, especially when it comes to the boss fights. When you're going up against the Flash, and he could rip your heart out at any time he wants to, or when Batman knocks you unconscious and then lets you get up and fight him, the greatest detective in the history of mankind, allows you to live. And then you have Superman with lasers. He has laser beams from his eyes, allows you to live. I understand this is a fantasy video game, and you have to do certain things in order to gain the upper hand on what is essentially a god. But it just came across as being handled very poorly. I don't have a problem that they killed the Justice League. It came across as lazy, cookie-cutter nonsense, especially, well, with the Flash. He speeds around the map until you're able to hit him for some reason, even though you can't hit him with anything else except for the little beam energy thing that slows him down. Oh, I'm getting into spoilers, but who cares? The game is trash. Dialogue is trash. Now, a lot of the discourse coming around, of course, is Kevin Conroy, Batman's death. And I'm going to look at this, and I'm forcing myself to look at it as that my problem with it is not because Kevin Conroy passed away. That was my Batman the Animated Series. He also did the voice in the Arkham games, which is, again, this game is supposed to be taking from that series. This is Batman from the Arkham series. Fans are upset, especially after what they did to him in this game. Spoiler alert, just Harley Quinn shoots him in the face. And this article from The Gamer says it's pretty cool, actually. One of the reasons that they give is that Batman shouldn't live forever. I've written in the past about our collective lack of media literacy causing us to reject challenging stories. There's nothing challenging about the stories that I've seen in the Suicide Squad game. But Batman is the flip side of this. This act has been taken as a slight against Batman fans themselves. I think you're being a little hyperbolic there. It is not a slight against the fans. It's a slight against the character, a beloved character, a well-written, decades-old beloved character who would allow himself to be captured by 4 idiots, especially in a way, especially since the Batman in this game apparently is rather super-powered, super evil, and no longer has the restraints of not wanting to kill people. And yet they were allowed to live entirely too long and just unceremoniously shot in the face. It could have gone down better instead of the way they did it in the game. I think that's what a lot of people have with it. The way the male characters were killed. Green Lantern was left in his underwear. Superman was just left off to the side. He dies and they look up and move on to the next mission. There's no gravitas is not the word I'm looking for, but I hope you understand what I mean. There was no moment of reflection over the death of Superman, evil or not. The Flash, same thing. Batman left on the ground after being knocked over on a park bench after Harley shot him in the face. And of course, the only different ending, the only different defeat I've seen that there was any sort of care given to is Wonder Woman. My understanding, she sacrifices herself valiantly in order to help you kill Superman. So, all the male characters, it's very difficult to look at this and not think that maybe, just maybe, Sweet Baby Inc. has some sort of agenda when they put their grubby little mitts into this game. A lot of people have been talking about that. I try to stay away from hyperbole and conjecture and any sort of, any sort of thing like that, any sort of speculation. But after a while, it just becomes more and more difficult when things like this happen. When you have the Justice League, 4 male heroes, 1 female superhero. Wonder Woman is given a valiant, heroic ending, sacrificing herself. The other 4, just left on the ground to die, shamed, embarrassed. Boomerang pisses on Flash, literally. These things were written in the game, and you can use the argument, Suicide Squad are evil. They have a mission to do. Waller has the brain bombs in their head, and they don't have a choice. These lines, these scenes, all this was intentionally written by someone at the studio. They were able to do something noble for Wonder Woman. Why couldn't they do something a little bit less bitch made, for lack of a better term, for Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, and the Flash? Why did they have to be punked out, pissed on, quite literally, assassinated by a subpar character of Harley Quinn, who is being pushed to the rafters? Why? No idea. She's an okay character, but she's not a main character for anything. She was an interesting character when she was introduced as Joker's sidekick in Batman the Animated Series. But beyond that, a one-note character because she's crazy, she's quirky. Without a good main character to follow behind, she's not interesting enough. And my goodness, some of the dialogue and mannerisms that I was watching during the cutscenes made me roll my eyes to the point where now I have a sinus headache. I wish that was a joke. I actually have a pressure headache in the back of my head. Probably the reason why I'm talking like this, but I'm going to move on and finish this. Rocksteady killing everyone who likes the bat. What? What on earth is this article smoking? Superheroes tend to live forever. That's because they're make-believe. Surviving death-defying acts a dozen times over, then quietly fading into the background where you're never quite sure whether they're alive or dead. Batman pulled this trick both at the end of the Dark Knight trilogy and the Arkham series, but it doesn't feel very Batman. Why? Are you upset of the success of the Batman franchise? Why must you kill these fictional characters? They're heroes. They do not age. They don't need to age. They've been around, since the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and so on and so on. They've 50 years to 100 years. That might be a little bit much, but you understand my meaning. This idea of thinking that we want them to live forever. Oh, wanting him to live forever seems against the spirit of Batman. Well, if you think that, then you don't know Batman. You don't know the writers. Batman, it's a comic book. They don't age. Richie Rich was a child forever. Bart Simpson's been in elementary school since the dawn of time. What is this need to insert the real world into fantasy, into our little power fantasies, our escapism, the desire to destroy the escapism that Batman fans and DC fans, what's left of them, know and love, to take a break from the real world and this desire and Ignore all your problems. Read a nice little superhero story, Superman story, fantastic, great. Listen and watch and read as the world's greatest detective is outsmarted occasionally by the Riddler, only to gain the upper hand finally towards the end, because, well, it is still the story of a hero. This desire to celebrate the destruction of those heroes, to praise it, to write it over and over and over again, it's just a bit psychotic for me. Can we get back to your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Get back to the ground level detective stories of Batman. Get back to truth, justice, and the American way of Superman. Stop making these characters old and broken and grim and tired and evil. Bring back the joyous escapisms of these games, of these characters, of these movies and comic books. Bring that all back. And of course, point and laugh when you have articles like the Suicide Squad is actually kind of fun. Well, people getting refunds would disagree. What happens to the Batman and Suicide Squad is cool, actually. Do we use that word still? Or is that just boomer or Gen X words? I don't know. Point of debate. A sort of risk-taking. I didn't see this one. I'm going to read this and finish this off. Exactly the sort of risk-taking video game stories need. Like I said in the beginning, there's no risk in killing off superheroes or making them evil, so you have to fight them, because it's done to death in modern media. So maybe come up with something new. Why don't you take the risk of making the superheroes actual heroes? But hey, I'm going to try to go watch some more of the Suicide Squad cutscenes, because I need to see this nonsense for myself. It's an embarrassment. These things were written. These lines were written. I can't wait to see what the numbers are as far as on Steam and the sales. I'll be talking about that very soon, because this is just too fun. I'm rambling enough. Goodbye. Have a good one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, leave a dislike. I can't talk that fast. I have a headache. I'm going taking some ibuprofen.